Today I'm chatting with Marta De Pfaff, a tyre performance engineer in World Superbikes, and her path is fascinating, from industrial engineering in Spain to Formula E and beyond. What's brilliant about Marta's story is how she mapped out her career path, and she didn't take the direct route, even turning down her dream employer to gain better experience elsewhere first. Marta shares how she jumped from automotive to motorsport, her time in Formula E, what a tyre engineer actually does day to day, and balancing passion with building the right skills in a high pressure environment. So let's dive into a conversation packed with lessons about patience, strategy, and following your passion. Marta, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here. I think we'll just jump straight into it very quickly, actually. I suppose, you're working at Honda now, but you've been around a fair number of racing teams and different entities in motorsport. I guess, first of all, could you give us an overview of university that you went to, the courses that you studied, and then going into your career?
Hello, Scott. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I have a little bit I did a little bit of everything in the motorsport. So basically, I studied industrial engineering in Barcelona. At that time I was competing in dressage on horses in international level. So when I finished my studies of engineering, I started working in SEAT, and that was just before COVID. And then at that time, I had a little bit of, let's say that how I would put it, that with the horses, I couldn't go any farther. So basically, at that time, I was focusing I wanted to focus a little bit on my professional career as an engineer. And then I thought, okay, I really like the competition, that it's been always there. And I was working in SEAT, and I really like automotive in general. So I said, what I can do, that I can join both. And obviously, all my life with my dad, my brother, we watched MotoGP. I'm Spanish, so that's a very common thing. So I always had it in mind. And then at that time, I just started looking into masters. And then I found the Oxford Brookes Master in Motorsport. And then in COVID, I moved to the UK. And I did my master's in motorsport.
And what had you studied before that?
Industrial engineering.
Okay, so something a little bit different, right?
Yeah, so basically how it was, I don't know if I'm explaining correctly, but how it was basically when I turned 18 and I was in high school and I had to decide. I was I have no idea what I want to be as a grown-up. The only thing I know is I want to do some engineering. And then in Spain, I think in the UK, you don't have this degree. But in Spain, you have industrial engineering that basically is the most general in engineering of all. So basically, they teach you a little bit of everything, but you don't know anything in particular.
And were you happy with taking that route? Were you happy with, do you think, looking back, do you think it was a good thing to do something more broad, understand what you started to like as you got a bit older and a bit more experienced?
Yes. So I'm very happy with the decision that I made on the industrial engineering, because at the end, as I said, it taught me a little bit of everything. And it's not that when I finished, I learned a job. I didn't learn any specific job. What I learned is to think and solve problems mainly. Even though we had subjects that it was insane of maths, infinite dimensions and these things. I was when am I going to use this? But at the end, with the time, I understood that it wasn't what I was learning. It was how my brain was being trained.
Okay.
So now looking back, it's that's the best decision I made. Also, it took me what I am now, so I cannot complain. And then when I decided to do motorsport, obviously it was in English. It wasn't different, to be honest. I went there and I was expecting something very different from what I did in my degree, but basically it was the same as my degree, but applied.
Right.
In automotive.
When you say that, you mean the way of thinking about things and maybe the maths that is involved and so on?
Exactly. So it was instead of having, I'm making this example, but instead of studying infinite dimensions in algebra or in physics and these kind of things, it was actually the same kind of procedure or kind of same subjects, but applied in
Sure.
motorsport with a goal. Or for example, when I did aerodynamics, it was okay. I studied it's called like fluids, science of fluids. That at the end is like how planes are made and these kind of things. I went to aerodynamics, to the subject of aerodynamics, and it was very similar because at the end I knew already the base that I needed. I just apply it into cars,
Sure.
basically. And then when I was in Oxford, in Oxford Brookes, I was the only one that wanted to do motorcycles. So since day one, I was like, okay, if I'm doing this, I want to do motorcycles. I don't like cars. I didn't like cars at all. I didn't watch an F1 race in my life. It was the first time in 2020, the first race that I watched. And I met a lot of people that like it, that they like bikes and everything also. And also they taught me a lot about cars. And I remember I did all my projects. They were like based on motorcycles. My mind was like motorcycles. And then at that time also I was in the Formula student there, that obviously we did what we could. It was COVID times. We were from home. So, but anyway, also it taught me many things in way of we had to learn ourselves to do many things as MATLAB or a lot of like I was in the control systems and vehicle dynamics team. So, I mean, I had to learn a lot by myself and with my classmates. And then at that time I had to do my dissertation, and the only topic that the university was giving about motorcycles was a thermal tire model for racing motorcycles. And that's basically how I got into tires, because I started doing that and I loved it. I really loved it. I really loved the challenge that a tire can give you, because at the end it's a part of the car that you can try to put science on it, but it's very complicated. There's so many factors that affect to how it will perform or behave. And then at that time, by a friend of mine, he was doing like some testing on the motors or from the Formula student, and then he met a guy that he was an engineer in the BSB, in the British Superbike team in PBM. And he talked about me, and basically he gave my contact. We had a conversation, and then that same year I joined the BSB with Ducati, and I could do my tire model with them.
Sorry, Marta,
So
just to cut in over you there. Just taking, I'm trying to like break down the decision making that you took, and it sounds like when you went into the tire side of it, you were following your passion for motorbikes, not, and the kind of niche of engineering that you went into was secondary to following your passion. Would that be correct?
Yes. So basically I didn't have any clue about tires at all, like at all. The only thing I wanted to do is be involved in motorcycles. And when I got my first job in my first team, I was literally, every time I go there to visit them, it's like, Marta, we are your first love, huh? He was like, yes, they are, literally. That team, the year that I spent there, I had so much fun. I loved it so much that I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. It's in here. So yeah, it was nothing to do about tires at all. It happened that I ended up doing something that when I finished my dissertation, I remember calling my mom and saying, okay, mom, I found out what I want to be as a grown-up. I want to be in a place that they pay me to develop my tire model. That's basically what it was. So yeah, that was it. And then for personal things, I had to move back to the UK, to Spain the year after. So that year I had to, it was a bit tricky. So I had to join, I joined IDIADA as electric vehicle expert.
And IDIADA, just for the audience, is a test facility, right, in Spain?
Yes. Yeah, it's where they do most of the homologations from most of the car brands, I would say. Like all the crash testing, all the proving ground they have. But this time, like that time, it was 2021. The electric vehicle was kind of starting to be there, and a lot of development, a lot of things. So basically, when I moved back to Spain, I did a lot of electric vehicle in the masters, Also, when I was in SEAT, I did some testing in electric vehicles, and also the Formula student in Oxford Brookes is electric vehicle. So at the end, I was a little bit involved in the electric vehicle, and I knew already. So yeah, I joined that team. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the IDIADA, but I don't want to give up on my motorsport dream. So I joined the Moto2 team, Stop and Go. So I was doing both things.
Oh, you were doing both,
I was like
were you?
very
So
tired.
what was that, like a weekend job with Stop and Go, or?
Yeah, so basically it was I was traveling to the races. Okay. So in my daily basis, I was going to the other to work and do my job. And then on the week when I had races, so all my holidays from the other job was basically to do more my Moto2 races. Because at the end, I have to say that I was there a little bit in Spain because I had some problems so in my family. So at the end, it's like I had to do it, but I'm not gonna give up. So at the end, I don't remember much of that year because I was so tired all the time. But yeah, I gave up all my holidays just to basically do my.
We hear these stories, various different stories from anyone that's been successful in motorsport, and there is a degree of kind of giving something up or pushing yourself beyond where you might normally want to go. You know, while we're at this point in the story, why were you still pushing so hard on the motorsport side of things? What didn't the automotive job give you that the motorsport job did give you?
Basically the adrenaline. Okay. So I did. So I was very clear when I finished my dissertation. I want to do that. I want to be the people that I saw when I was a kid on the TV, on the garage of a MotoGP team. And I remember that when I was in the Moto2 team, I was in the European Championship and I did couple of World Championship rounds. And I remember I did a lot of friends around there in the paddock. And I was like, what do I need to do to be in the big leagues? I don't want to be here. I want to be in the big leagues. I want to be in a factory. Also coming from the background that I have a lot of friends working already in the F1 and everything. I know a little bit how it works being in a factory and all of this, because one of the things that I did when I was lucky enough, it was that I met a lot of people in Oxford, and all of these people are Williams, McLaren, a lot of people in Mercedes also. I have a lot of friends around, so I know how these big leagues also work. So I was, oh my God, I'm talking so much. I'm sorry.
It's perfect. Carry on. The audience will be getting...
I'm Spanish. I'm sorry. I cannot help it. So basically, when I was doing that, I just knew what I wanted to do, that it was the motorcycles. And even despite the things that I had at home, I loved my job in IDIADA. I had so much fun. I met so many people. Also, it was very fun because I was doing trainings to firemen and to the technicians there about electric vehicles. So I met a lot of people and it was very, very fun. And I learned a lot of skills to talk in public and to, kind of engage the audience kind of thing. So then after that, I remember I had 2 races to go with the Moto2. And I went back to Oxford to visit some friends, and I was there, and I remember I have to go back. And then basically a tire engineer job came out from NEO 333
Formula E team.
And
Formula E team.
Yeah, Formula E, yes. And basically I applied, and they called me, and I had an interview. And the good thing is, I used my dissertation for that interview. Well, actually for all my interviews, but that's the presentation that I made and the knowledge that I made. See, there's no many people that know about tires, purely the physics of tires, and even less in motorcycles. So I remember my boss in NEO was like, if you know about motorcycle tires, you will know about cars. Yeah, okay. And that's how I got the job. And then 3 weeks later, I was moving back to the UK, and yeah, that's how I started in the Formula E.
And that job, you're traveling around, right, to each of the races?
Yes, I was a tire engineer, trackside and factory, because we had at that time, it was me. And it was the first tire engineer that team had. It was challenging. I must say it was challenging. That one was tricky. Also because I remember the first test, we were in Valencia, and I was doing the track walk with my boss, and I was like, I just see bikes leaning. I don't see cars. I don't see the trajectory of cars. I cannot see.
When you say it was challenging, it was because you were transitioning from bikes to cars, or yeah.
Yes. So it was many things involved in the transition. First, that I was kind of giving up on my dream, if that makes sense, even though I was being a little bit strategic in my mind, but I was kind of giving up on my dream. So it took me a couple of days to kind of decide, okay, I'm moving away from what I'm supposed to do to be in the big leagues with the bikes. And then, and I remember I got this question in my interview. My boss asked me, like, if they call you from a MotoGP team, would you go? And I said, no, I wouldn't. Because now it's my time to learn, not to achieve my dream. I said that, I remember. And I completely agree still now that it was the best move I did.
You were telling the truth?
Yeah, completely. Always. I always told the truth. I never hide that bikes were my thing. I never hide that. I never knew what was coming next. I was just going and being the best of myself, like, at that time.
You say that it was your time to go to Formula E and have that role, but why did you think that was the case? Why did you see this as a step towards MotoGP or World Superbikes?
Because basically what had happened, it was when I was in the Moto2, I said, I saw kind of thing that in order to be there in the big leagues, I have to spend many years doing something that I'm not fully happy with.
Right. So you thought you could jump sideways, go with a kind of high level car series, and then jump back across to something higher in bikes.
Yes. So basically my thought was, like, if I learn the technicals of car championships, big like world championship in cars, that at the end they are way more advanced technologically, engineering, everything. They are more advanced, like I would say even 15, 30 years ahead, the cars. So my thought was a little bit like this. That's why I said, no, it's not my time to be in the big leagues with motorcycles. It's my time to learn. I always had like the goal, but at the end it was like I was going step by step of what I had not what I had to do, but what I felt it was right for me to end up there.
And I think the lesson there is that you are taking a step back. You're actually you're consciously thinking about it, right? You're being strategic. You're thinking about, where you want to go, and then you can map out a route of how to get there rather than letting your career happen to you.
Yes. I mean, I have to say that I didn't expect to happen that fast, okay, to achieve what I wanted, but it's true that it was a little bit that was
and
my
winning
thought.
a Formula E championship on the way as well. Which we haven't got to yet,
exactly. Right? It's like now it's like now I'm 4 wheels world champion. Now I need to get the 2 wheels, and then it's like how many people has both?
Finished.
Exactly, done. Then I retire. But it was that was a little bit my thought, and to be honest, every time I was in the FE, Neo, and then after a Jaguar, I never thought, okay, I'm moving to bikes. Never. I never applied to a job. I never did anything. I was like, I'm super happy.
Before we get into the bikes, so just in terms of like career progression, obviously you've explained why you went to Formula E and to Neo. Why then did you take the decision to move to Jaguar, which you did for the 2023 season?
Yeah, so basically there was 2 things. First, I would say 2 or maybe 3. First, Jaguar was the team that it was kind of winning. Second, my boss at Neo 333 was leaving. And for me, he is one of my references. And I remember when I got my job when I got the job at Jag and everything, I was like, talking to him all the time, like, I don't know if I should take it or should I move, or I don't know if I want to leave, these kind of things. And then when I got to the Honda job, I was like, he was the first person I texted. Like, he was even like not even in FE anymore, but I was like, I really don't know what to do.
So he's your mentor as well, right? He's kind of helping you along your journey.
Yes. Yeah, so I have to say that, like, I've been very lucky with all the mentors I had. All my bosses have given me something in order for me to be better. And that's a big thing to say. Like, it's very lucky on my side, because at Neo 333, well, first in the BSB was like my first opportunity to actually see that. And then on at Neo 333, my boss at that time is the most intelligent man I've ever met. It's like insane. And then at that time also I could work with very high level tire engineers, that they taught me many things also. So that was like, for me, my transition from Moto2 and then to Neo was like the hardest, because I had to learn so many things, but also it's a little bit, it gave me so many
Sure.
things also. And then when I moved to Jag, there was like, okay, they were winning, my boss was leaving, and then I met the senior tire engineer at Jag. And then when I met him, I was like, yeah, I want to work with him. I literally need someone in my life to teach me everything that they know. And basically it was him. When I met him, I was like, yeah, I want to do the move. I need someone to teach me properly tire engineering. And he was like the guy, basically. And that's why I moved to Jag. And I had an amazing year, very tough. It was very tough at the beginning. But then we end up winning the championship. In London, we did the last two poles. That it's basically, as a tire engineer, especially in FE, what you want is to do the pole, like qualifying P1. That's your
because
goal.
It's the ultimate performance.
Yes, exactly. It's like when you need to put everything together to give like the tire one lap. You just need to put everything and tell the driver like one lap, that's a lap. And I remember we did two poles in like the two poles in London, one with Midge, the other one with Nick. I ended up crying, obviously, because it was my last event with them. I was like, I cannot, like, I remember that we struggled a little bit at the beginning, and then after, like, we end up like on top.
Yeah, I was there. I remember. And then I think I can understand what the next step and the kind of final step that brings us up to the present moment is. But what did the decision to move from Jaguar Formula E to World Superbikes with Honda look like? You applied for a job and they said yes, and you went.
I didn't apply. I didn't.
Dream.
It was like the craziest thing that ever happened to me. To be honest, like literally, it's when I always explain the story how I got the job at Honda, it kind of tells like, take every single opportunity that you have in your life, like literally, because how I got the job, it was like when I was in BSB, so my first job, my rider at that time got married, and I went to the wedding. And at that time I was in Spain already. I went to the wedding, and there I met some, well, ex-MotoGP riders. I met people from the FIM, from the Motorcycle Federation, and there was the wife of one of the riders. She's the women in motorsport in the FIM, right, in the Motorcycle Federation. And she was like, oh, give me your CV. Okay, I'll give you my CV. And then a couple of months later, she calls me and she said, okay, there's a opportunity that we're talking in 2021. She says, okay, there's an opportunity in Honda HRC, in World Superbikes. Send your email to that time, well, the team manager at that time, Leon. And I sent my email, my CV, and never heard back. Okay, I did my Idiada, I did my Moto2, I went to Neo, I went to Jag. Just when I was starting at Jag, I received a call. Can we have an interview from the team manager at HRC? I have your CV from 3 years ago. And I'm like, what? Okay, fine. And then we started the conversation, and then says, wait, like, because he had my CV from back then. So it's like, wait, I need the engineering, the chief engineer from there, from the World Superbike. And then he joined. I was explaining, I presented my dissertation again. I was explaining what I was doing at Neo, because at that time I didn't start at Jag yet. So basically they called me and they said, okay, we weren't expecting you to be that, like, have the CV. You have my CV from 3 years ago. So yeah, I did stuff. And then they offered me the job that I had, and I said no. I said no because I wanted to do Jaguar. I wanted to do Jaguar because of all I think that I heard that it was a team. Well, it is a team with very high technical level. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be in the limit. I felt like it wasn't my time to go to the bikes. And to be honest, now I would have said that I would have stayed one more year in Jack. Now.
Oh, really?
But yeah, maybe yes, because I felt like I needed a little bit more. But I mean, at the end, some time after, they called me. I said, I mean, if not now, it's not the time because I want to do Jack. I want to learn as much. If call me in a year, maybe 2, and we'll talk. And they called me a year after.
That's an interesting decision, Marta, because like I think that for a lot of people, perhaps they would get given this opportunity that they've dreamed of, the job at Honda, and then just jump to it and go to it. And I think it speaks volumes about yourself to actually have the patience, because you know that at the end of the year or the 2 years with Jaguar, you're actually going to be even more qualified for a role like that. So you're taking quite a long-term view on this.
Yeah, basically it was a little bit like this. It was like, okay, it's not time. You know, I mean, I met so many people on the way that they got caught by the big names of the position and this kind of thing. But I end up like, okay, now you are senior, I don't know, engineer in something. And at the end, you're 28 years old. What else do you want? You want to go to another team, and then people like they have 30 years more experience than you are going to eat you. It's not literally. It's like it's a very competitive world, and because we are competitive, because we like this. So basically, so I felt like I needed more time and more. I had a very big opportunity at Jack. And so I took it, and then I said, okay, I talked with my boss at Neo at that time. I was like, yeah, so, and he literally advised me this also. He was like, stay Jack, MotoGP, World Superbike, they will be always there, you know, because if you have the level on cars, you will be you will be welcome there. So after, they called me a year later, and I couldn't say no. Literally. I couldn't say no.
You did some time.
I felt like I was ready to go. Yeah, I was ready to go, and I feel I was ready. I literally was ready. And to be honest, is the best. Like for me right now, I made it.
Yeah, and you've done it quickly, right? I mean, just for a bit of reference for the audience, like you finished at Oxford Brookes in 21, the summer of 21. And now you've already been at Honda for 6 months or so? Well, halfway through last season. So I think it's a great lesson for people to kind of look at how you've moved up and around and built your experience. Actually, even though it's been incredibly quick, you've taken very strategic decisions in order to make sure that you maximize the learning that you have along the way, and that you do carry the most value for your dream, right? There's a lot of lessons in this. You've stayed focused on what you were looking for, but you've also been very strategic of not getting there kind of too early with not enough experience that you wanted to get.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I mean, it's when you're young, people from, especially in the bikes, there are a lot of people with a lot of experience, but they don't have as much technical background as engineering and this kind of thing, but they know like a lot. Girl of 30-year-old, like with 5 years experience, it's like, what are you going to teach me? What are you going to give me? You know, it's nothing, you know? So at the end, in order to move, you have like, I had to be sure, you know, that I knew that what I wanted, I knew what I knew, what I learned, what I had to do. And that doesn't mean it has been tricky. It has been very tricky, the transition. But it's getting there. I'm getting there. And now it's true that I changed for the 5 past years. I changed every single year of team, like championships. But now I'm in the place that I say I want to stay here. And I'm the place where I should be, where I am, what I see. I made it, but I see myself doing like so many other things in within the team and the factory. So
fantastic.
To be honest, I love it.
Brilliant. I mean, that's the kind of end of a fantastic progression there. I think let's end with that part of this podcast. What I'd like to talk about now is what a tyre performance engineer actually does. What does, and probably for my own sake, if you can relate it more to the Formula E side of things rather than the bikes, because I don't know too much about bikes, but what does your week look like? What do the race weekends look like? What software are you using? How big is the team? All of these different things. Like, let's start off with what a typical week would look like.
So I'm going to talk about cars because in motorcycles it's very different, and also it's very new, my position. So I'm going to talk about the cars. And basically, my job is to understand the tires theoretically, kind of thing, and try to get the maximum performance, or more than this is understand how to get the best performance out of the tire. Because the tire, how it works is basically there's a small range of optimal performance. And what you want is achieve that all the time, in qualifying, in racing, all the time. And my job at the end as a trackside a tire engineer is basically understand how to get to that point. So my job when I was going to the FE races, so an FE team more or less is I would say 130 people more or less. Out of those, more or less 30 people go to races. Okay, and out of those, I would say I'm just thinking, and maybe I'm getting the numbers like wrong, but more or less out of those 20 maybe are engineers. So in the cars it's very specific. So if you're a tire engineer, you're a tire engineer. If you are like systems engineer, you're a systems engineer. If you're control engineer. So it's like very specific. That at the end our job is to talk all together to put like the best out of in the car, and then the race engineer with the driver, they put the best performance. But then my job at the end, when I was in the racing, was okay. We arrive Wednesday. We do the setup of the box, like we put the box. No. The thing is, the week before the race, we do all the pre-event preparation. Simulator day with both drivers. We do the pre-events report, saying we run all the simulations in order to understand or what to expect from that specific track, especially in FE that you have a lot of new tracks coming, like, so you don't have data. So we did a lot of simulations, and then we put a pre-event together, just basically on the tires and having the first thoughts. Then we go to the track. Wednesday we do the setup, and then we start working on it. And then on Thursday we keep working on the things, and then we get the tires from the manufacturer. At that time it was Hankook. So we just mark them, with the tire technician. We mark them, we put them where it should be, all of this. Then on Friday morning, we have the track walk. So the track walk is a very important bit for me. To be honest, it's one of the most important bits, because to understand how the tire is going to behave, you need to understand how it's going to interact with the track, with the surface of the track. So we did a lot of measurements on the surface of the track and a lot of calculations, metrics, in order to understand how this type of track is going to interact with the tire.
Are you taking like a camera to scan the surface?
Yes. So you have different devices, but you have like cameras or scans. You have also machines that take the grip of the track, of the surface. We have GPS. We have so many things. There are so many gadgets to do. And then after that, I would do a proper track characterization in order to understand. Also, one of the things of the FE is that usually it's a city track, so there are so many different type of tarmac around the track. So that's a very tricky thing, because when you try to do strategies for the qualifying, you need to understand where you can push or where you cannot push, depending on the type of surface.
Okay, makes
Yeah. So very clear example. For example, London. You've been in London, right? London track. You have the indoor side, that you have a very sandpaper type of surface, and then you go outside in the harbor side, that you have normal tarmac, street normal. That's very tricky. For me, it was it was the most tricky track in order to understand how the tires were working. Because, for example, if you have a surface like the indoors, that it's sandpaper, you overheat the
just for the viewers who might not have seen that surface. It's crazy, right? It's almost like if you go to a factory and they've painted the floor in like high grip safety surface so you don't slip over if it rains. It's like it's so coarse and thick.
Yeah, exactly. I would say like when you do your nails. I don't know the
nail
name
file, yeah.
in English, but when you do your nails to put the form that is like, or when you have a, how's it called? Well, to I don't
It's
know the
like
name in
sandpaper,
English.
right? It's actually like sandpaper. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally sandpaper. It's sandpaper. But because it's something that they put just for this specific
Yeah.
moment, and then they remove it. So that, for example, it's a very tricky one, because then you go outside and it's completely different. So you have to play a lot with how to do the out laps and the warm up laps in order to understand how the tires are going to behave. So that's why the track characterization is very important. So from there, we have FP1, well, usually shakedown, FP1, then FP2, and then there is when I have to understand how well me and the team and Jack, we were more than one tire engineer. Just it was me in the track, but then in factory we have another one, and so we were working a lot together. How is they are gonna behave, and we run again simulations with real laps, and then we start talking with the drivers, with the race engineers, of potential strategies for the qualifying. And then at the end, that's the main thing. And then when, for me, it's a very exaggerating, but for me the weekend ended up in qualifying. For me it was like I did my the FP1s, FP2s, and everything to understand how the tire was behaving. I was putting together the strategies with the drivers. I managed all the tire management thing in the garage for qualifying. Once qualifying was done, I'm done.
Because you have all the information that you're going to get and process, and you've made the decisions already.
Exactly, and the thing is that obviously in the FE you don't have many things to do with the tires. You don't have warmers. You cannot cool down. So you have to play. In my years we had covers, but covers that you couldn't do anything with them. It just literally covers that can retain a little bit of heat and this kind of thing. So at the end, or how we would put the tires in the box in order to maximize like the heat retaining, or in order to cool down, even if you cannot cool down artificially, but naturally, how was the optimal way? So all these things were the things that I would do between FP3, for example, and qualifying, because one driver would tell me, I want the tires like this, and the other one would tell me, I want the tires like that. So I had to manage, okay, this one I have to do this, and this one I have to do that. And then on the race, I would run some simulations, but these specific tires, the Hankook tires, they weren't very, the wear wasn't the biggest problem. So at the end in the race, there were other stuff more important than tires. So I would do my simulations, I would give my recommendations for the race, but it wasn't like super critical.
Got you. Okay.
Now I think this season it's a bit more critical.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So then you'd finish at the race weekends, and then I presume there's a lot of kind of debriefing once you get back to the factory the following week.
Yes. So we do the post-event analysis to understand what we did correct, what we could improve, and in order for the next season, how can we what would be our starting point.
Yeah.
And then prepare for the next one.
And so that's in season, but what happens off season? How does the role change when you're not traveling, however many races there are in Formula E?
So you have all the testings. So at the end, you end up traveling anyway for the testings. And then at the end, you kind of, during preseason or during off season, what you try to do is like the things that you thought during the season, okay, I might need a tool like this. I could do that in order to understand better the tire behavior like this. That's basically what you do during preseason, when you have more time to understand what can be improved trackside, what would make my life easier during my time in trackside. So it's something that you debrief and you do it during the
Right.
preseason.
And with this kind of role, like what kind of tools are you using in terms of like software or software really?
Yeah, so basically MATLAB is your best friend. MATLAB is your best friend. Then we had some tools for simulations.
Just to stop there, can you give a brief outline of MATLAB in case our viewers haven't heard of it?
Yeah, so MATLAB, I mean, I learned MATLAB in my degree in Spain. And then I did it in Oxford. I improved it a lot. So MATLAB is the software that most of the, how would I put it? So MATLAB is a software that you do coding, mainly code, in order to build tools. And then for example, the ECU software is mainly built with MATLAB. In MATLAB, it's a very big engineering tool that you have the coding that you can do. For example, if I want to do an analysis fast, I can do a code of, I don't know, for example, a correlation. So I have the sensor data and then the simulator data, and then I can do a fast calculation in MATLAB, for example.
It's a software to build other software.
Yes, I would say. It's like, it's the most expensive calculator in the market. That could be also.
And does that require special language knowledge, or does it use a different language?
Well, MATLAB has their own language, that is MATLAB. I mean, at the end, one of the things is that programming has all the languages in programming are very similar. So I learned in my degree a little bit of MATLAB, but not much. I mainly did Python. And then when I was doing MATLAB, I saw that it was a little bit more like, okay, it's similar to Python, but a little bit different. So you Google the things. I want to do this, and then you do it. And one of the things that I learned with the programming, so now I know more than one programming language just because of my jobs. I had to learn like Python. I know Julia too. I know MATLAB. So different. And one of the things that I learned in university, for example, when I did my coding subjects, it was like, it doesn't matter the language. I just have to understand how the machine thinks or how the machine behaves. Once I understand that, it doesn't matter the code, because the code you can always can find it in Google. So at the end, it's not knowing, it's knowing what you have to look for. It's
figuring out how to structure everything, I suppose. Yeah, the concept side of it.
Exactly. So it's kind of, we go back to my university thing that I didn't learn anything specific job. I learned how to think, where to find the information that I need in order to solve the problem.
Sure. Yeah,
if
that
makes
perfectly.
Sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic, Mark. Well, look, we've been going for quite a while actually already. That was brilliant. Thank you for talking us through your career and actually going into detail about what a tyre performance engineer does day to day. Just a quick one to end, I suppose. What were the best things about working in motorsport, particularly at the Formula E teams maybe, and then also on the other side, the worst things about those roles?
That it's difficult. So the best things, it would be the challenge. You're always challenged. It's not a kind of job that basically you get bored, because there are always things to do. There's always things to improve. You get this adrenaline also, and you keep changing tracks. So at the end, it's not like you go to one and then you know everything. No, every single track is different. Also the teamwork. At the end, there's one thing you spend, like one of the bad things, for example, is like you spend a lot of time away. So it's very difficult to be stable in your life, if that makes sense. So for example, last year, I think I spent 33 weeks away. So and the year has
33. That's
so
a lot.
It just, that's a lot. So these kind of things, I mean, and then one of the things that I got frustrated, it was like, I don't have time to settle down. I cannot settle down. That was last year, but because I finished one championship and I started another one, so it's not normally I wouldn't do that many. But anyway, you travel a lot. So, but the thing is, when you travel a lot with the people that you travel in these teams, at the end you share the biggest passion, that it's motorsport racing, and you don't do this job if you don't love motorsport and racing. That's the thing. It's like everyone that is there is very passionate about it. even though if you can complain sometimes, like I'm not sleeping or I'm tired or I don't want to take another plane. But one of the things is you don't work in there if you're not very passionate about. So you surround yourself with people with the same passions, and then you end up making a team, friends that you feel like family because you spend so many times with them. And then challenging for here, like for me, that's one of the things is like, now that I've made it like as my goal in profession, it's like the thing is that never stops working. Every time I finish my day, I'm completely destroyed mentally because I've thought and I challenge myself a lot, and that's the thing that I really like. So I would say this. And the downside that you travel a lot, it's like, yeah, you miss many things, but at the end, it's for me, it's worth it because when I'm there in the track, it's like, yeah, that's what I want to, that's where I should be and where I like to be. So
brilliant. And I think that's a perfect way to end this, Marta. Your passion comes through. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time with us. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity and everything.
Cheers.
Bye.